The crowd's roar was deafening. A tidal wave of cheers crashing over the football field as Ethan Caldwell, the school's golden boy, sprinted past the defense, ball tucked under his arm. Untouchable. I stood on the sidelines, heart pounding. Not because of the game, but because I'd just lost a bet to him, the Ethan Caldwell, star quarterback, whose smile could melt glaciers and whose reputation was a fortress of charm and privilege. By Monday, I'd owe him something big, and the thought alone made my stomach twist into knots. My name's Lucas Harper, a senior at Westview High in suburban Ohio. The kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. I'm not invisible, but I'm not exactly Ethan, either, more like the quiet guy who aces English and doodles in the margins of his notes. Ethan and I orbit different worlds. He's the sun, all heat and gravity, while I'm a distant planet, unnoticed unless you squint. So when he caught me staring during gym class last week, his grin sharp and knowing, I should have known better than to take his bait. Bet I can score the winning touchdown, he'd said, leaning closer than necessary, his voice low. If I do, you owe me. If I don't, I'll do your history paper. Like an idiot, I shook his hand, sealing my fate. Now, as the scoreboard blared victory, Ethan jogged off the field, sweat slicked and triumphant, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. My breath hitched. He didn't just look at me, he saw me, like I was the only one there. Before I could process it, he was striding over, teammates slapping his back, but his focus never wavered. Ready to pay up. Harper, he called, voice teasing but with an edge I couldn't place. I forced a laugh, hoping it hid the panic clawing my chest. What's it gonna be? Caldwell. My lunch money, I quipped, but his smile turned cryptic. Meet me in the locker room after everyone's gone, he said, then turned away, leaving me frozen. The locker room was a ghost town by the time I slipped inside, the air heavy with the lingering scent of sweat and cheap body spray. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting stark shadows. I shouldn't have come, every instinct screamed to bolt, but curiosity, or maybe something deeper, kept my feet rooted. The door clicked shut behind me, and there was Ethan, leaning against a row of lockers, his jersey swapped for a plain white tee that clung to his frame. You showed, he said, almost surprised, his voice softer now, stripped of its usual bravado. Yeah. Well, a bet's a bet, I replied, aiming for casual, but sounding like I'd swallowed sandpaper. He stepped closer, and the room felt smaller, the air thicker. What do you want, Ethan? My voice wavered, betraying me. He didn't answer right away, just studied me, his hazel eyes searching mine like he was solving a puzzle. Then, without warning, he grabbed my wrist, pulled me into the coach's office, and locked the door. My heart slammed against my ribs. What the hell? Man, I stammered, backing up until I hit the desk. Ethan didn't move closer, just stood there, hands shoved in his pockets, looking nervous. That was new. The untouchable quarterback. Nervous. I'm not gonna hurt you, Lucas, he said quietly, his voice raw. I just needed to talk. Somewhere private. I blinked, confusion drowning out my fear. Talk. You dragged me in here to talk. He laughed, a short, shaky sound, running a hand through his dark hair. Yeah. Sounds dumb when you say it like that. He paced a step, then stopped, facing me. Look, I know this is weird, but I've been watching you. Not in a creepy way. He added quickly, cheeks flushing. It's just, you're different. You don't care about the popularity crap. The team. Any of it. You're real. And he cut himself off. Jaw tight. Like the words were fighting to stay inside. I didn't know what to say. My pulse was a drumbeat. Loud and erratic. Ethan Caldwell, the guy who could have anyone, was standing here, fumbling over words, looking at me like I held the key to something he desperately needed. Ethan, what are you saying? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a deep breath, then stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. I'm saying I like you. Lucas. Like you. And I'm freaking terrified right now because I've never said that out loud before. The world tilted. My mind scrambled to process his words. But all I could focus on was the way his eyes held mine. Vulnerable and unyielding. Ethan Caldwell, the school's untouchable star, was gay. And he liked me. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Because the truth was, I'd been watching him to his laugh, his confidence, the way he moved like he owned the world. But I'd buried those feelings, convinced they were a one-way ticket to heartbreak. Say something, Ethan pleaded, his voice cracking. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. I didn't expect this. I admitted. You're Ethan Caldwell. You're just a guy. He interrupted, his voice fierce. Not a quarterback. Not a hero. Just a guy who's been trying to figure out how to tell you this for months. He stepped closer, and I didn't back away this time. His hand brushed mine. Tentative. Electric. You don't have to say anything back. He whispered. I just needed you to know. The air between us crackled, heavy with possibility. I wanted to reach out, to close the gap, but fear held me back, not of him, but of what this meant. Westview wasn't exactly a haven for guys like us. Rumors spread faster than wildfire, and acceptance was a luxury not everyone could afford. Yet standing there, with Ethan's hand grazing mine, I felt something shift, a spark of courage. Fragile but real. I like you too, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. His eyes widened, a smile breaking through the tension, bright and unguarded. For a moment, it was just us, the world outside that locked door fading away. But then a loud bang echoed from the locker room. Someone was out there. Ethan's smile vanished, and reality crashed back in. We weren't safe here. Not yet. Ethan grabbed my arm, pulling me behind the desk as footsteps echoed closer. Stay quiet, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. My heart raced, not just from the fear of getting caught, but from the way his hand lingered, steadying me. The locker room door creaked open, and a voice, Coach Daniels, called out. Caldwell, you still here? Ethan's grip tightened, his eyes locked on mine, silently begging me to stay calm. I nodded, barely breathing, as the footsteps faded and the door slammed shut again. Silence returned. But the air was different now, charged with the weight of what we'd just confessed. We can't stay here, Ethan said, his voice low but urgent. He unlocked the door, peering out before motioning for me to follow. We slipped out of the office, the locker room still empty. But the moment felt fragile. like we were stealing time. "Come with me," he said, leading me through a side exit to the school's empty parking lot. The autumn air was crisp, the sky bruising into dusk, and Ethan's pickup truck sat alone under a flickering streetlight. He opened the passenger door, hesitating. "You don't have to come, Lucas, but I want you to." I climbed in without a word, my mind a tangle of nerves and exhilaration. Ethan drove us out of town, the radio humming softly as we wound through quiet roads lined with golden trees. Neither of us spoke for a while, the silence heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, he pulled over near a small lake, the water reflecting the last streaks of sunset. "This is where I come when I need to think," he said, cutting the engine. "No one else knows about it." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the cracks in his perfect facade, the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers fidgeted with the keys. "Why me, Ethan?" I asked, my voice soft. "You could have anyone. Why risk all this for me?" He turned to face me, his expression raw. "Because you see me, Lucas. Not the quarterback. Not the guy everyone expects to be perfect. You see me. And I've been hiding who I am for so long. It's killing me." His words hit like a punch, unraveling something in me. I'd spent years hiding too, dodging questions about why I didn't date, laughing off crushes I couldn't admit. But here was Ethan, the guy who had everything, laying himself bare. "I'm scared too," I admitted, my voice shaking. "This town, it's not kind to people like us." He nodded, his hand finding mine across the seat, his touch grounding me. "I know. But I don't want to pretend anymore. Not with you." We sat there, hands clasped, the world outside the truck fading away. He told me about the pressure his dad's expectations, the team's worship, the constant need to be someone he wasn't. I told him about my own fears, the way I'd learned to shrink myself to avoid notice. It was the first time I'd ever said those things out loud. And with every word, the distance between us shrank. When he leaned in, his lips brushing mine, it wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise, fragile and fierce, that we'd face this together. But the next day at school, reality hit hard. Whispers followed me down the hall, eyes lingering a little too long. Someone had seen us leave the locker room together, and Westview's rumor mill was ruthless. By lunch, a group of Ethan's teammates cornered me outside the cafeteria. "What's going on with you and Caldwell?" One of them, Jake, sneered, his voice loud enough to draw a crowd. I froze, my mouth dry. But before I could answer, Ethan was there, shoving Jake back. "Back off," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. The crowd went silent, and for a moment, I thought he'd say more, something that would change everything. But he just grabbed my arm and pulled me away, his jaw tight. "They're gonna talk," he said once we were alone in an empty classroom. "I don't care what they think, but I don't want you getting hurt." His eyes were fierce, protective, and it made my chest ache. "I can handle it," I said, though I wasn't sure I could. He shook his head. "You shouldn't have to. I'll fix this." But how do you fix a town that judges what it doesn't understand? That night, I lay awake, replaying his kiss, his words, the way he'd stood up for me. But fear not at Mew had, if this was too big, too dangerous, for either of us to handle. The rumors spread like wildfire. twisting truth into something ugly. By Wednesday, graffiti appeared on my locker, fag, scrawled in red paint. Sharp and cruel. I stared at it, my stomach churning, until Ethan found me. His face darkened, and without a word, he grabbed a rag from the janitor's closet and scrubbed until his knuckles were raw. "This isn't your fault," he said, his voice thick with anger and guilt. "I dragged you into this." I wanted to argue, to tell him I'd chosen this too. But the word stuck, because part of me wondered if he was right. That afternoon, Ethan's dad, a former coach with a temper as big as his reputation, showed up at school. I overheard him yelling in the principal's office, something about disgracing the family. Ethan emerged pale, his eyes hollow, and when he saw me, he tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. "He knows," he said simply, and my heart sank. We didn't talk much after that, but he drove me to the lake again, the silence between us heavy with unspoken fears. "He wants me to leave town after graduation," Ethan said finally, staring at the water. "College ball. New start. Pretend this never happened." My chest tightened. "And what do you want?" I asked. He looked at me, his eyes fierce. "You. This. Us." Those words carried us through the next few weeks, even as the whispers grew louder. We stole moments where we cooed in his truck, at the lake, in the quiet corners of the school where no one looked. Each touch, each glance, felt like defiance, a rebellion against a world that wanted to tear us apart. But the pressure was relentless. Ethan's teammates froze him out. His dad's lectures grew harsher, and I caught my own parents exchanging worried looks when they thought I wasn't watching. Yet every time I thought about pulling away, Ethan's hand would find mine, his voice steady. "We're stronger than this." The breaking point came at the spring talent show. Of all places, I'd signed up to read a poem, something I'd written about hiding, about longing, about finding light in the dark. I hadn't told Ethan, hadn't told anyone, but when I stepped onto the stage, I saw him in the crowd, his eyes locked on me. My voice shook at first, but as I spoke words of love, of fear, of fighting for who you are, the room went quiet. I wasn't just reading for me. I was reading for us. For every kid in Westview who felt like they didn't belong. When I finished, the applause was tentative at first, then louder, and Ethan was on his feet, clapping harder than anyone. Backstage, he pulled me into a hug, not caring who saw. "That was incredible," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. But the moment was cut short when Jake and a few others stormed over, their faces twisted with anger. "You think you can just flaunt this?" Jake spat, shoving Ethan. Before I could react, Ethan pushed back, hard enough to send Jake stumbling. The crowd parted, and I saw Ethan's dad in the doorway, his face a mask of fury. "Enough," he barked, grabbing Ethan's arm. "We're done here." That night, Ethan showed up at my house, his eyes red but determined. "I told him I'm not leaving," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not hiding anymore. I choose you, Lucas. I choose us." My heart swelled, but fear lingered. "What about your dad? The team? Everything you've worked for?" He smiled, soft and sure. "You're worth more than all of it." We didn't fix Westview overnight. The graffiti faded, but the whispers didn't. Ethan lost his starting spot on the team, and I learned to ignore the stares. But we found allies, teachers who spoke up, classmates who clapped at that talent show, kids who'd been hiding too. We started a small GSA club, just a handful of us at first, meeting in secret. By graduation, it had grown. A quiet revolution in a town that wasn't ready but was starting to listen. On graduation day, Ethan and I stood together, caps and gowns flapping in the breeze. He took my hand, right there in front of everyone. And for the first time, I didn't pull away. The future was uncertain. College, new cities, new fights, but we'd already faced the hardest part. We'd chosen each other, and that was enough. As we tossed our caps into the air, I looked at him, his smile brighter than the sun, and knew we'd write our own story. One brave, messy, beautiful step at a time.